Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see so many people here. We are honored today to welcome Al Roker to the Cronkite School as the 38th Cronkite Award honoree. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to those who traveled from New York with Al and who have joined us for this afternoon's event. I believe Al's wife, Deborah Roberts, traveled with him, but Deborah's at least not here at this moment, but she is among the contingent. But we also have Lauren Andrulich. Am I pronouncing that correct? I hope. He's senior producer with NBC News Partnerships, and Diane Festa, Senior Vice President of News Partnerships at NBC Universal. Could Lauren and Diane, if you please stand so we can see you and recognize you. And now I am excited to introduce your co-hosts this afternoon, Faith Amber Crombie and Nicole Shin.
Hello, how are we all doing today?
Good. Woo! Thank you so much, Dean Batts, for the introduction, and thank you so much to everyone for joining us today.
Yes, Nicole and I are so excited to welcome and have here in the Cronkite School, Mr. Al Roker.
Whether you're watching him on the Today Show or scrolling through social media for some Monday motivation, Al Roker is an inspiration to all.
Yes. We talked about your Monday motivation from Instagram. We follow it.
Yes, we do.
We love it. Nicole and I could think of a million questions to ask you, but we know we have a lot of journalists in the room today. So we will turn it over to you guys a little bit later.
And we just ask that you be as concise as possible with your questions. We want to be very respectful of everyone's time and get as many questions answered as possible. And without further ado, let's get started.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. There we go. Thank you for that tepid response. That was really special. No.
I love the change in tone. Let's do it. Okay. Walk me through the day you found out you won the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism.
Well, I thought I was actually being pranked because I thought, me? When I got the email, it was like that. And I checked with my folks. I said, I just got this email. Is this real? And they said, yeah, it is. And I thought, are you sure? And they said, yes. I said, is there another Walter Cronkite Award? And they said, no. So I was stunned. I really was gobsmacked because I don't really, I've survived this long by trying to keep a low profile. I don't, even though I'm on TV, but I don't like a lot of attention, although my family would probably argue opposite that. But in fact, my daughter Leela said, Dad, there's nobody who loves watching you on TV more than you. I said, if I don't, who will? But yeah, so it was really a stunning, I just wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I always see the list and you see who gets it and you go, wow, yeah. And then if it's you, you're like, really? I don't know.
And how has Walter Cronkite played a role in your life in the quality storytelling that you bring to millions of viewers every day?
Well, I am old enough to actually have watched Walter Cronkite. We were a CBS household, and we watched the CBS Evening News. And, I remember him, I think the thing I remember, the two biggest moments I remember was the Apollo moon landing, when he reported on that. And when he reported on, and I was in third grade when he reported on the death of John F. Kennedy. And I remember everybody weeping. But, you couldn't help but, couldn't help but be moved by his prose. You know, it was, I mean, he did a newscast day in and day out, and yet you could cherry pick any script of his, and it was a master class in news writing and delivery, and, you know, the time when you could deliver the news and deliver a point without having a point or a point of view. And if you did, nobody knew what it was. So I think he has always been that kind of touchstone for journalists. And I've been fortunate. I never worked with him. I got to meet him a few times. But I feel like I've worked with others like that who've carried that tradition on. And it's, you know, there are certain people in this industry who are those touchstones, and you try not necessarily to emulate them, but to take what they do and use it as a filter for what you do.
Definitely, to carry on the legacy for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So my question is kind of, what have been the highlights of your career, and then conversely, what have been some challenges that you faced in your career, and what have you learned from that?
Well, you know, challenges. I mean, look, I've been very fortunate. I mean, I got a job. I got my first television job. I didn't want to be on TV. I wanted to work in television. In fact, I went to the State University of New York at Oswego, right on Lake Ontario. There were 2 seasons, July 4th and winter, and like I said, I really my department chairman, when I had my first television performance class, after he looked at my tape in front of class, he said, "You know, Roker, you've got the perfect face for radio." And I was like, wow, that's not really a compliment. So another guy who didn't do particularly great in the class was a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name was Jerry Seinfeld. So, yeah, so I don't know what happened to him, but he left after our sophomore year. But, I'd gotten a job doing weekend weather and in Syracuse, New York. And after I graduated from college, I got a job in Washington, D.C. And about a year into my job, the news director told me he didn't think that I was cut out to do weather, but he thought I was good on TV, and that he wanted me to think about transitioning to become like the movie critic for the station. And I said, I like movies, but I don't want to talk about them for a living. And I was prepared to come in on that Monday and tell him, you know, look, I just want to keep doing weather. So, and over the weekend, it turned out he got fired. Woohoo!
That worked out
and then
for
6
you.
months later, I left the station. So that was a challenge. But there've been a lot of really unbelievable moments, high points of meeting people that I never thought I'd get to meet, places I never thought I'd get to go, from covering the Olympics to, as an amateur cartoonist, getting to interview Charles Schulz twice, once for the 50th anniversary of Peanuts, and then sadly 6 months later when he was diagnosed with terminal colon cancer. I've had this wonderful life and been able to, through this business, I think, because I don't necessarily consider myself a journalist, so that I can ask questions like most people would, of what most people would want to know. Not particularly bright, but I can. I think the secret to my success is that most people look at me and go, "Well, hell, if he's on TV." Oh, it's like a slinky, only not. It's a cup that rolls down and bang, 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 bang. Everybody's looking at me. No, I'm sorry. I just drifted off there. It's kind of like a Saturday night for me. I just kind of drifted off.
So you have this energy that makes people laugh. You have this very warm energy. You make people smile. You make people want to laugh with you. But you also know when it's time to be more serious. I mean, reporting on natural disasters like Hurricane Ida, for example, you were out there reporting on it, conveying this very serious tone energy, but you also know how to do the day-to-day, very lighthearted forecasts. How do you know when to balance the both and kind of switch the mood of when you're talking to your viewers?
Well, I think it's like anything. It's like when you go to a party. You read the room. You get the tone. As Jerry Seinfeld, it's all about the tone. You've got to watch and see what's happening, and it's something that look you learn over time. When I first started in 1974, I wasn't as good, but you learn as you go, and hopefully get better at figuring that out and being able to make the transition. It's like anything. It's like a newspaper. There's the serious part of the paper. There's the lifestyle section. There are the comics. So there's an ebb and a flow, and so you just kind of go with the flow.
Go with the flow. I like that a lot. You grew up in a time when people of color were not as represented in the news or honestly in media in general. And you, kind of like Faith touched on, have had this huge impact on an entire generation and to students of color and journalists of color such as myself. What would be your advice to a person of color entering this industry who maybe is kind of disheartened by the lack of representation, or who might be the only person of color in their newsroom?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, it's I think it's getting better. If you look around, the fact is it doesn't get better until there are front offices, whether it's the general manager, the news director, the executive producers, are more representative of the audience. And making those decisions, so that you're starting to see that change. At NBC, the head of MSNBC is Rashida Jones, a woman of color. We have the president of NBC News Group is Cesar Conde, a Latinx. Over at ABC, Kim Godwin, who's the news president there. So I think you are seeing changes. Listen, as I've come up, I was the first black forecaster in most of the cities I worked in, and that, it's not easy being the first, but I think it is. Like, my dad was a bus driver, and then worked his way up into management at the Metropolitan Transit Authority in New York City. But one of the things that he told me early on, and I always thought, my dad's a really hard-working bus driver. I mean, his uniform was always impeccable. His shoes were always shined. He always looked good. And he said, look, the fact of the matter is you're going to have to work twice as hard and be twice as good as the white kid next to you. Yeah. And I've always kind of worked that way. I'm also from Caribbean descent, so we always have at least 3 jobs going. We invented the side hustle.
When you think about weather, I mean, for mostly everyone in this room, if not everyone, when you think of weather, you think about Roker. You've kind of made this name for yourself. You've established yourself as someone people can trust. You've become very trustworthy, especially in a time where there's been this sort of division between the media and the people. It's become more complex. What does it mean to you to be this person that people really go to and look to and can trust in this industry?
Well, look, I think when you look across the television landscape and television news landscape, I think at the end of the day, and I think people trust their weather person because we are dealing in facts. It's not an opinion that there's a hurricane. It's not an opinion that there's a snowstorm. A severe thunderstorm outbreak is not Republican or Democrat or Independent. This is what it is, and so and we deal with that the same with climate change as well. We just make sure that these things are dealt with in a factual manner, and we come into people's homes, and I think you have to build a level of trust for that. And so, and let's face it, we're usually the goofiest part of the news team. You know, I mean, you know, we usually aren't dressed very well, present company accepted. But you know, the fact is, I think it's a position that people have come to appreciate. So it's not so much that they trust me; I think they trust the position.
So what are your thoughts on climate change and the media's role to educate people when it comes to issues like this?
Well, I think it's like anything in journalism. I think, you know, having hysteria or pushing something just for the sake of pushing it is not the answer. It's making it, in a sense, organic. That if there is a tie, not every weather event is caused by climate change, but more extreme events are made more likely because of climate change. So if you can make that link, that correlation for the viewer and make it intelligently and explain to them why they should care about it, I think that makes all the difference. And I've been very thrilled that, you know, we have the NBC News Climate Unit. We've got a unit dedicated to climate because climate touches everything, whether it's business, medicine, economics, lifestyle. It now impacts every facet of our lives. So I think it's important to deal with that, and at least I can say at NBC News that we take it very, very seriously, and are trying to make those connections for people when warranted.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but you said you've never thought about yourself being on TV. You wanted to be like production and in writing, and now you're like a CEO and an author and a weathercaster and a co-host and a wonderful father and husband, and this list just like continues to go on. When you first started off...
I made this jacket.
You did? From scratch?
Started
Wow,
from scratch.
that's...
It was a simplicity pattern.
This just in, yeah. Well, when you first started off that first job, did you ever envision your career how it is today?
Oh, gosh, no. I mean, you would have to be a raving egomaniac. Well, I am, actually. But you would have to be, who would think this, you know? I mean, really, it's mind-boggling. You know, so, no, but, you know, I've always marveled at people who have this, you know, these 5-year plans. You know, like, I'm going to be this and then this. And who knows? You know, so
Nicole and I right now, as we're getting ready to graduate.
well, there you go. But you know, if somebody had said 2 years ago, oh, by the way, the entire country and the world's going to shut down and we'll all be working from our home in sweatpants, nobody would have believed you. But here we are, and so. You know, that's why I think it's important to be as open to anything as possible. You may think you know what you want to do, but yet you don't know what it is you're going to do.
Yeah.
My wife, Deborah Roberts, who, by the way, is a real journalist, was in her freshman year at UGA, was a theater major. And took a journalism class, but she always was interested in news. And then she was off to the races. So, you know, I really believe that, you know, you should be open to everything because you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you may think you do, and that you may end up doing that, and that's great. But being open to the possibilities is so exciting.
Definitely. Well, I'm like going to write down all your advice because
Yeah,
we definitely could take it.
I can write that quote.
No, don't write it down. It's just nobody remembers.
Well, I know some of you might have a couple questions for Al Roker. Right now, we are going to turn it over to the students. For anyone that has questions, please form a line behind this microphone, and we will get through as many as we possibly can. So start forming that line and thinking of those questions.
Here they come.
Wow. Yikes.
Hello.
Well,
Not nerve-wracking
I was
at all,
expecting
right?
to hear crickets.
Hi, Al Roker. My name is Ayabdeen. I'm majoring in sports journalism. What is it like to bring in the confidence you have by today in television as a weathercaster?
I'm sorry, say what, the last part one more time?
As a weathercaster.
Well, you know, I think it's something that develops. I don't think anybody comes out fully formed, you know, ready to go. I think because you don't know who you are, what kind of personality you're going to have, it just takes time. I don't think I really found my voice or footing as to who I was probably until about 5 years into my career. It's just and something clicks and you go, oh, this is who I am, and you have that confidence, and you don't really even have to think about it. You just do it, and some people I had a young man who was an intern when I was working at WNBC in New York doing weather. And this kid did an audition tape, and he'd only been he was a junior, and this kid was so far ahead of where I was in 5 years into my career before he'd even left college. I was like amazed. And other people can struggle for 10, 12 years and still not make that point. But I think, you know, if you're really passionate about it, you'll find it. And listen to your own voice. Don't listen to other voices.
Thank you.
You're right.
Hi there, Al. I'm Emma Vandeninde. I'm a graduate student here at the Cronkite School. You strike me as a very lighthearted and jovial person, and I think Faith highlighted that really well earlier. How do you keep that morale up in the newsroom? I mean, we see the reports about Ukraine, we see the reports about climate change. How do you keep the morale up for journalists that, you know, are seeing these news reports and getting disheartened themselves?
Well, you look, I think it's harder now because, you look, when I was your age and you finished work, you went home, and unless you turned on the TV at 6 or 11 o'clock, or maybe the radio, you didn't hear anything. You didn't get a tweet. You didn't get an Instagram. You didn't get anything. You didn't get an email. There was not. So you were able to shut down and shut it off. And you know, it reminded me. I think there's got to be separation. You got to turn things off. I was fortunate enough last Wednesday. My brother, my son-in-law, and I went to go see Elton John. We went to dinner and we saw Elton John. And you know, we didn't look at our phones other than take a couple of pictures, but we didn't open up any apps or anything for 5 hours. You know, from the time we had met for dinner and hung out, and then waiting for the concert, and I didn't even. And then I got home. I didn't turn the phone on. I didn't look. I plugged it in, made sure my alarm was set. I got up the next morning and found out that Russia had invaded Ukraine. Now, I could have known that 6 hours earlier, but would have it done anything for my life? Would have made my life any? Would I have done anything about it? No. Could I do anything about it? No. So I still found out about it before I went to work, but I had a good 8 hours of feeling good, and I felt like crap. But in the meantime, I felt good. And so you got to shut down. You got to separate.
That's good advice. Thank you.
God, I sound old. You know, when I was your age, get off my lawn!
Okay. Hi, Mr. Roker. My name's Morgan, and I'm a Master in Mass Communication student. I want to preface this in case I have mascara all over my face. Nicole's one of my best friends, so I'm really proud of her, and I've been crying like the whole time. But I was wondering if you could talk about a time where maybe something didn't go your way in terms of like your professional career, but it ended up resulting in, I guess, something for the better. I know you mentioned being open to any possibility. So I'm sure a lot of people in this room have ran into obstacles that they didn't hope to. So if you could just talk more about that.
Well, you know, I think that one of the issues is that I've tried to, you know, when you get given lemons, you make lemonade, stuff like that. And that's all well and good, but there are times where you've had a bad broadcast or a bad show, or you maybe were hoping for a certain job and you didn't get it. For example, I had a news director, this was early on, I had applied, it was for Baltimore, and he told me that he didn't think I was working in Syracuse. He told me I didn't think I was ready for a major market. And then 3 weeks later, I got a job in Washington, D.C. So you don't know what one door closes, it's the old cliche, the other one opens up, but you've just got to stay the course. If you really feel that this is what you want to do, you know, I had an agent, you know, when you get to the point, and I was trying to, you know, see if I could maybe get this one agent who everybody knew, and he said, oh, send me a tape. I was working in Cleveland at the time, and he said, I'm not seeing New York, I'm not seeing L.A., I'm not seeing, and then 6 months later, I got a job at WNBC doing weekend weather, and I ran into the guy, he says, well, you didn't tell me you wanted to do weekends. You're an idiot. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have to pick yourself up and move forward. You know, listen, I've got a daughter who's 34 and a daughter who's 23 and a son who's 19. But, you know, my older two girls are out and working, and they've gotten batted around and had issues, and, you know, they've had to stick through it. And, you know, as a dad, you want to make it right, but they have to find their path. And you will, if it's what you're chosen to do.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Al. I'm Aiden Hansen. I'm a freshman here at the Cronkite School. And as somebody who's personally dealt with a lot of mental illness and stuff like that, I just want to know, like, how do you personally handle yourself with, you know, how stressful this industry can be? And, you know, what do you think that the journalism industry has done to help that?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to knowing that this isn't the be-all and end-all. You know, that it's a wonderful career, it's a noble career, because you're informing people, you're giving people information. You know, I mean, look, you look at talking about Russia and Ukraine, it's more important than ever. Journalism is more important than ever. It is a beacon. There's no two ways about that, especially in an age of misinformation and social media, and who can you trust? So I think there is an importance, a real importance to that. But sometimes we can feel too self-important, that we think we are it, and that how can people go on without us? Well, they can, but if we make sure that we are vital and are making sure we are making differences in people's lives, then we can do that without a lot of fanfare, that we're just there. You know, I think that's really great journalism. It's there. You don't have to go look for it. You don't have to seek it out. It's there. And I think you've just got to realize, but there's got to be a balance, that, you know, it's not it may be your avocation, but to say that it's your life can sometimes be almost all-consuming. And you're very young right now, and you've got to, you want to be a fully formed individual, which is what you said. You're a freshman?
Yeah.
I would say to you, and you're a journalism major?
Yeah.
I would take as many different classes as possible, you know, beyond what's in your major. Take geology, take pottery, take different things. Because in the old days, again, old man coming out, a really good journalist could write would know a little bit about a lot of things, as opposed to knowing a lot about a few things. And then you can hone in on what you're interested in.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello, Al. My name is Cameron. I'm a senior journalism student. And my question is, how do you feel about the future of legacy media, and how do you think it will adapt into the future as we sort of get away from traditional TV broadcasts and newspapers?
Well, look, I think everything evolves, and like for example, at the Today Show, we're a legacy brand. I mean, we're about as legacy. We just celebrated our 70th anniversary, but in that, in the last several years, we've become kind of like a 360 kind of brand. We're in digital, we're in podcasting, we're streaming. Wherever we're on Sirius XM radio, wherever the audience has migrated to, we have as well. And so, perhaps our slice of the pie may be smaller. The pie may be smaller, but we're making sure you take as many slices as you can. And what's interesting about it is it actually, I think, is one of those things that allows us to do more, because instead of being limited to what was a 2-hour broadcast, now 3-hour, now 4-hour broadcast of Today, we've got Today All Day, we've got different, so that we can expand on original reporting and different things, because we have the bandwidth to do it and the availability to put that on. So I think the smart legacy media, which I put us in, that bailiwick, is leaning into that as well. But by the same token, there are still few places that that you're going to have a couple of million people watching at the same time. So while it's not as big as it was, we're still, when you look at it, it's still a place where you can find a lot of people, and a lot of people come to us to get that information.
Thank you, Al.
You're welcome, sir.
Hi, Al. I'm
Hello.
Alex Genevieve. I'm a sports journalism major at ASU. So you actually, early in your life, you were an amateur cartoonist.
Yes.
And you said you were planning to go to the New York School of Graphic Art and Design. And then my question regarding that is, do you ever look back on that career path and say, man, what could have been? And then I actually have another question regarding your time with Today. You've covered a lot of storms, including Hurricane Ida, Hurricane Wilma, and Superstorm Sandy. Is there any storm, between those three, or maybe another storm that you look back on in your career and you think, man, I can't believe I covered that storm, whether it be most powerful or most newsworthy or something like that?
So the second one first, I would say Sandy, because that was, I think, a wake-up call. Where people said, "Whoa, this is actually change. This is a storm that literally changed the geography of the coastline of New Jersey. This is a storm that, without making a direct hit on New York City, decimated Lower Manhattan. I think it was a wake-up call to the power of nature and climate change. And we were." I think even for us who cover it, and I've covered a number of hurricanes, it was like, wow, this could have gone sideways for us very easily. So that one really sticks out. And what was the first question? About cartooning.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I wasn't very good, but so my parents did me a favor by not letting me do it. But I jump ahead to my middle girl, Leela, who went to private school through middle school and got interested in musical theater and wanted to try out for the LaGuardia School of Performing Arts, the FAME school, people. And my wife was kind of like, well, why are we doing this? I mean, she's at a great school. She goes into a great high school. She's going to be going to this public school. I said, here's the deal. And I related this story. I said, I've always wondered what my life would have been like if I had gone to graphic art and design. And don't get me wrong, life's turned out pretty good. But I've always had that question. And I would rather her not have that question, so let her go. And I found once we decided to, and we didn't let her go. She had to audition and do the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's very competitive. But I talked to a number of people after she got in, from a U.S. district attorney, a United States district attorney, to a neurosurgeon, a top neurosurgeon. All of these people, men and women, had gone to LaGuardia Performing Arts, and they said to a person, they all said what they learned at that school, they put into practice every day in their current lives. So even if it's not something you're going to use or end up, every experience is another part of you and makes you you. So while I wasn't the next Charles Schultz, or Aaron Magruder who did Boondocks, I did okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peyton. I am actually a double major in meteorology and journalism. I first want to say thank you so much for being an inspiration for me since I was just a little weather nerd. So this is crazy for me. But my question is, as someone who's going to be entering the weather field soon in their early 20s, what's the biggest piece of advice you can give for someone that's about to enter the weather field?
I would say weather is great. I love it. I love doing it. But that you should also, when you get that first job, you should also push to do as many different things as possible. Make yourself a utility player, that you can not only do weather, but you can go out and report. You can do weather live out in the field, but you can also do climate-related stories, but you could also do fun feature stories. When I started at WNBC in New York doing weekend weather, I reported 3 days a week and did weather on the weekends. In fact, there were people, when I got the Monday through Friday job, were confused. Why is Al Roker doing the weather? He's not a weatherman, But they were right. But if they didn't watch on the weekends, they didn't know I was the weather guy. So I would say try to be as well-rounded a journalist / broadcaster / meteorologist as possible, because it just opens things up for you.
Thank you.
Hi, Al. Like everyone else, I'm just so honored to meet you and so glad to have you here. I should probably talk a little closer to the microphone. But anyways, I guess my question for you is, like me and some of the other people here at Cronkite, we're all so passionate about journalism, but also having trouble carving out our niche. I know that I'm a journalism and political science major, and I'm torn between broadcast and print. For you, was there like an aha moment, like I'm meant to be in front of the camera or something? And also, what's your best advice for staying comfortable in front of the camera?
My aha moment was when like I said, I didn't want to be on TV, but I got the weekend weather job, and it paid $10 a newscast. This was in 1974, and I was in school. I finished my broadcast. I drove home. I stopped at the Oswego sub shop, and the owner of the sub shop said, "I just saw you on TV. Any sub you want, free." Oh, this is great. Oh, I'm staying in this. On TV and free food, ooh. So I'm not lying. That was the truth. And they've named a sub after me at the school, so that's high honor indeed. Not as high as this, obviously, but it is a sub. And the second part was about...
What's your best advice for staying comfortable in front of the camera?
Oh, staying comfortable in front of the camera. Willard Scott gave me the best bit of advice, and that was just be yourself, for better or for worse. You're going to sink or swim on you. And if you believe in you, then bet on you. So be you. Because I see a lot of younger folk trying to be the next Bob Costas or the next Mike Tirico or whoever, Al Michaels. Or they're there. They're who they are. You got to be who you are. And that may take a while. So don't be frustrated by that. You've got to give yourself time. But just, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Roker. My name is Sarah, and I am a junior here at the Cronkite School, and I am double majoring in journalism and meteorology. So you are really, really good at connecting with people through your forecasts and your stories. What is, in your opinion, the key to connecting with viewers through a screen with so much media distrust?
I think it's just being honest with people. It's not the worst thing in the world to say you don't know or that you made a mistake. We've all had our fair share of, well, I've had of blown forecasts, and just admit it and explain why. This is what happened. I think a little humility goes a long way, and that we don't have all the answers, and I think knowing that we're all human is the common denominator, and if you can find that, then I think I think that's, and I think in a way that's why people like the weather person on their newscast, because we don't pretend to know everything. We are fallible, and I think people know that, and even though they joke, "Oh, you guys never get it right," but they know that we do, but we're going to blow it from time to time because it's nature.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Roker, thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Brennan O'Keefe, and my question is, what's a risk that you may have taken early on that, maybe you would not have taken otherwise, that has really paid off in the long run for your career?
Well, I used to look like Denzel Washington, and I had plastic surgery. A risk. I am relatively risk averse, but I don't know. I did, even though I didn't plan to do this. Once I started doing it, I felt that I was good at it, and so that I guess if there's any risk, it's kind of being yourself, because if you are yourself and it doesn't work out, then they're rejecting you, and that's a risk, So I guess now that I think about it, I don't know why I did this. But it's true, and so I think that's the greatest risk. You are at your most vulnerable by being yourself. But if it works, then that's great, because you're you, and nobody else can be you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hi there, Mr. Roker. Congrats on the award.
Thank you.
And also great job on SNL this last Saturday. It was really funny.
And here's the thing. Thank you. I had no idea what this whole 40 hands thing was.
Yeah.
You didn't either. Okay, I don't feel so bad. Everybody's like, "What? You don't know about 40 hands?" Anyway, go ahead.
What was some advice that you were given maybe while you were like my age, at 23? I know you're only 26 right now, right? So that you've taken along your career, and maybe it really helped you along the way.
Again, this was from Willard Scott. Besides being yourself, we always want to look for the bigger, better deal. Be good at one thing, you can do other things. Be like he always said. Willard did all these different things. He was a voiceover announcer. He was this. He was that. He did public speaking, but he said, "Weather's my bread and butter." And remember and respect that. Respect the job. So that I would say, make sure no matter what you do, you have a core, that you have a base that you can always come back to.
Thank you, sir, and congrats again.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Roker. My name's Austin Green. I'm a master's student here at Cronkite. And first of all, like, you're one of the first people I remember watching on TV. So this is a surreal moment. But I know, I know a lot of other young journalists can often struggle with, like, when things go awry in the field and maybe an opportunity arises in the field and you're not sure if you should take it or different things like that, kind of thinking on your feet. So I figured as someone who has done, I think, 3 impromptu fist bumps with the current president of the United States at his parades, like, what advice do you have for us when kind of you're alive in the field and you have moments like that?
Well, I think to go out in the field, you got to be ready before you go out in the field. In that, you've got to make sure you've done your homework, so that if things change up for good or for bad, you're ready for it. That you look, things are going to happen, and you're not going to be prepared, and that's just going to be the way it is. But I think if you if you're prepared, if you've got a base layer of readiness down, then you have a little more bandwidth to roll with the punches, so that if you already know what you're going to say, or have just and actually, not memorize what you're going to say, but just have a conversation with the camera, and then if something arises that you need to address or deal with, whether it's serious or it's lighthearted, then you can do it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think that is all the time that we have for questions. Thank you again so much for joining us, for answering all of our questions. It was really insightful, and I know that I enjoyed it, and I'm sure that the audience did as well.
And if you just can't get enough of Al Roker, then tune in tomorrow for the Cronkite Award Luncheon Red Carpet Show, hosted by Evan Liss and Ivory Ward at 11 a.m.
Okay. Please join Faith and I in giving Al Roker one more big Cronkite round of applause.